A very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Evening Review. My name is Toibon Jabela, your host. Tonight on the show, we're joined by Hewat Beukes, who is a socialist. He defines himself as a socialist, and all his pronouncements and ideological stances rather, are inclined towards socialism. Uncle, thank you for making time. We wanted to have you in studio today because we just had Kasinga commemorations last week, and a lot gets said during those days about the past, especially from the ruling party. You are part of the Workers' Revolutionary Party, and but you were also involved in the early days of the liberation struggle in your own way. So it's always good to hear from the other side also. Tell us about your background in politics, especially in youth politics.
Yeah, the first I must stress that the conception of the liberation struggle is simplified and distorted to the point of absurdity in most circles and in most people's minds. The liberation struggle literally started in 1884 with the colonization by the German Reich. And it took, as we know today, many brutal forms. The last part of this struggle actually started in 71, 72, with the general strike of the contract laborers.
Yeah.
And for various political reasons, people simply do not take into consideration that the liberation independence came as a complex of factors. But the most important factor was the struggle of Namibian and South African workers who made it impossible for apartheid to continue to exist. That was the 90% of the struggle. Thabo Mbeki put it quite succinctly when he said that we must admit that the struggle of Umkhonto we Sizwe was to a certain extent farcical. It was not the reason why the country became a democracy. It was this, and he was right. He didn't mention it outright that it was actually the struggle of the working classes that caused independence. So it's within that context that I'd like to comment on my role in the liberation struggle.
Yeah.
I was since very young, I was involved in the struggle. I was the 1963 encirclement by the South African Army of Rehoboth to arrest Kenny Abrams, who together with Neville Alexander of Cape Town were sentenced to Robben Island. Now the community there refused to hand over Dr. Abrams, and that was the time that I became active as something like a 12-year-old boy. And that was my entire life. In my entire life I was involved in the struggle of the Namibian people. But I resent claiming this heroism that flows around here, and later on it becomes meaningless,
Yeah.
the whole concept of hero. If you think what the contract laborers did to this country when they went on a general strike, then you begin to think, can you even compare these people selling themselves as heroes to what the contract laborers did? They brought an entire country to standstill.
Yeah.
And they offset struggle from South Africa. They gave the cue to the South African working class to embark on massive struggles, and we all know what happened.
Mm. Let me ask you, Uncle. You mentioned that chapter in the history of the country, the labor movement having stood up. You said in 1971,
71, 72, with a general strike, they brought the country to a standstill.
Yeah, because I mean, if you ask any ordinary Namibian, when did this second phase of the liberation struggle was fought? They'll always say that it's from 1966 when Ngulumbashe was attacked. That battle, that it kicked off this liberation struggle. But you're saying no, it actually took place years later in the 70s only. If you can explain that complex.
The point is that the Swapo was not a working class organization, it was a tribal organization.
Yeah.
It was essentially a tribal organization. And it did not even have a proper political program.
Yeah.
It did not have a land reform program. It did not have demands of the working class, the unions and so on. This was fought by the workers themselves.
Yeah,
And
but in 1966, Swapo had now transformed from OPO and OPC. It is now a Southwest Africa organization, more inclusive. Why are you saying that they were still?
No, none of these parties. I mean, they were Bantustan parties. Swapo still is a Bantustan party. In its essence, its way it's doing things, the way its outlook and so on. I, as a socialist, had to join inside the country.
Yeah.
The Swapo Youth League was the de facto leaders of the working class. They organized. Your Jerry Akanjos and so on organized the working class. Your Keshi Palau, Mahuriri, they organized the working class.
And Netumbo Nanditwa?
Yes.
Because Netumbo said
Yes.
She from the early 70s. I
Yes, she
think.
was part of that.
What do you recall about? What do you recall about? Do you recall anything about her involvement at the time?
Yeah, but what I know, I do not know her personally. What I know is when we were active here, the youth in. Can I just tell you that the youth who had organized, who had been part, they were not the sole organization, but they were part of those people who organized the workers nationally for the general strike. And thereafter, they mobilized against the Bantustans that South Africa wanted to bring in. Now, during the period from 72 and 74, the Bantustan administration embarked on a massive repression of the youth. They tied them to trees, they flogged them with palm trees. I don't know if you know about that. But
Yeah, of course, yes. We've had a few
and
things.
as a result, 4,000 youth fled the country. And these were serious people.
Yeah. Where did they go?
They went to Zambia and Angola. Zambia, that because they thought that the plan was well organized, that they could take up arms against South Africa. That is after they were met with massive repression. In 1974, I still remember my father going to meet some of these youths because they wanted to have a meeting in Rehoboth. Where Wamitas is now, on that stretch of road, the police blocked them and arrested them, and my father was called. My father went there to protest the arrest of youth. Now, that was the youth that left the country. And this is part of the history that's completely suppressed here. These youths, including Deitwa, were against the corruption in the Swapo leadership. That they were selling the weapons, that they were selling clothes, that they were selling food, while there were plan fighters dying in the camps. And they also objected and fought against the collaboration between the Swapo leadership and the UNITA with South Africa against MPLA. That's open history. But these are being suppressed. And these are not things that are being told. So this was the situation. And that is why up till today you cannot really show a finger, point a finger to Deitwa. I've never heard her involved in corrupt activities or anything, but that, as far as I know, I say this under correction because part of it was what I've heard, and part of it is the documentation that I have. And she was then posted to the east to represent Swapo. What did you stand against during those days? Because I'm told that you were also thrown in jail several times. You had your house bombed or something to that effect. What did you do? We supported, when we heard, when this struggle between the Swapo Youth League and Plan on the one hand, the Plan fighters on the one hand, and the Swapo leaders took place, we supported this. My mother was there. My eldest brother was with what they called the dissidents, the so-called dissidents. And she smuggled in the letters and so on from Zambia when she came back. My eldest brother had to flee Zambia. And that is how I got hold of this. But we took a clear position that we supported the youth in exile and the plan. But what we were doing inside the country was to organize the workers. We were organizing them at the mines, we were organizing them in the cities and so on. And we were organizing branches, etc. And we were trying to create the conditions for a renewed general strike. That is another story, how we were betrayed on that score. Personally, I was arrested in 77. Then in 78, I was taken in. We started a hunger strike I was leading the hunger strike, and for that they threw me into solitary confinement for 5 months, the next year for 7 months. And they did such things to me as taking out my 2 back teeth without anesthetic.
I see.
Yeah. That was the doctor was Clue or something like that. I know, or McClue or something, but he was from Gobabis.
Okay.
Those were the things that they did to me. But generally, I was not, except for the solitary confinement and that incident, I was not tortured. Of course, that also includes torture, but prolonged periods of torture I did not undergo, except for solitary confinement, which in itself is quite a serious form of torture.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was trying, and then I was involved in the union struggle.
Yeah,
I was supporting the workers in the union struggle and to organize with it. And especially during the 80s, I was fully involved in workers' struggle, supporting them and fighting the tendencies to use the workers' struggle for political ends, not for cheap political ends.
Yeah, I hear you. We'll go for a quick break, Uncle Hewat, but when we come back, we can then discuss, because I want to also understand then on that trajectory where you and Swapo sort of parted ways, because I mean, if you were involved in those activities, then I think the people will be very much interested in knowing what eventually happened.
But I must say that
yes.
We support the unions. The existing unions, we support them. We disagree with the leaderships on many a thing, but we say the union should be supported by everybody, and their leadership should be called to order, because that is, without those unions, the working class is in serious crisis.
Yes, we'll address that when we come back from the break.
To another exciting episode of Irongo Talk. We bring jou liefst weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis julle moontlik kan byt.
Our conversation continues on the evening review. Now, Uncle Hewat, so in what way do you think that workers were being used for cheap political ends?
Well, they were used during the 80s. Swapo did not organize the unions. It's something that came organically out of the working class. And as I've said, the Swapo Youth League is the one that was the major force in leading this. But the working class as a whole, starting with the contract laborers, organized themselves to do this general strike. And people don't understand the significance of that, mostly. And people don't even refer to it in the history of the working class here. What that meant is the entire country stood still. The trains could not move, the cargo could not be moved, the shops were still, no garbage was removed, things like that. It was a grand action by an extremely oppressed working class, which do not happen in any country, anywhere in such a fashion. So it was a showcase for the whole world. And when I say the whole world, for the whole world to show, because this said we are a powerful force.
Yeah.
And we are the only powerful force that can bring about change.
Yeah. But Swapo was, it came out, was born out of the working class, if you like. I mean, from Andima Toiwe in Cape Town, Sam Neoma was a railway worker himself. That frustration about how workers were treated at the time is what gave birth eventually to this party, and because it was also a socialist inclined organization, and you are a socialist yourself to date, I wonder where the disagreement sort of came, because you are, for example, now with a different political party.
No, that's why I say these things are complex.
Yeah.
Even though many of the people during on colonialism, they were thrown into the working class, and Sam Nujoma was in the working class, but that does not mean that your politics is that of the working class.
Yeah.
You can follow a program that is for the tribal elites and so on. There is nothing in the program of Swapo that says when we fight for the nation to take over their properties, their landed properties. It's not issue. The original properties that these people owned will be handed back to them. There is no program that says we are going to establish working class organizations that can be in political power and that can advance their own interest, and they will have real political power. Nothing of the sort. Instead, what is happening today is a complete suppression of the trade unions and the rights of workers everywhere. In the Chinese mines, they are firing union officials for doing union work. Yeah. That's what's happening. The companies, large companies, are doing union bashing. They are destroying the rights of workers. Now, so Swapo did not have a working class program. The same with the other parties. These parties all came from, many of them, their members were workers. That's true. But it did not mean that the leadership was following a working class program. And this is the problem that you've had, because they were fighting for privatization. Privatization is anti-working class.
Yeah.
They were fighting for selling the Namibian resources, where the Constitution and the Mining Act says these are resources that's not alienable. They're selling it to foreign concerns.
Yeah, I hear that.
These are anti-working class measures.
Yeah, yeah.
So just to tell you what my problem was, not because I realized very early on, we realized that the Swapo leadership was not a working class leadership, but the people who fought inside the country under the organization and banner of Swapo were working class people. And rightly or wrongly, we thought we could imbue a strong sense of working class direction and program in it, but it's not easy to foster political consciousness.
Yeah.
It's historical experience and all that that comes in. The people maybe have to, and I would not say have to, but this kind of experiences which we have now show to them that they have to re-look at the political program.
Yeah, wonderful.
The other thing that I just need to say is the question of tribalism.
Yeah, quickly, we have 1 minute.
Yeah, the tribalism.
Yeah.
These parties tend to generalize things and use tribal notions to say this party, Swapo, is Novambo party. Swapo is not Novambo party. It is a tribalist party. It's using tribalism so that a few can have benefits. But the people who suffer the most under Swapo is Ovambo working class and the rest. But specifically and historically, the people who were killed in Angola and so on were 99% Ovambo. That is how the thing works.
Absolutely. Uncle, thank you very much for coming.
Yes.
I think you should come back again sometime.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we appreciate your time.
Maybe we should make it more structured next time. You give me certain things I have to, and then we can
Yes.
optimize the time.
Absolutely. That is Hewat Beukes. He's a socialist inclined activist. He's been very, very active in the Namibian political space for many, many years, and he came today to show part of his wisdom in that space. Thank you for watching.